In the last lecture, we had a look at event binding. Now, before focusing on two-way binding and explaining what this is, there's one other important thing you need to know about event binding. Let's say before this button, we also have a label, server name, and then more importantly, we have an input, which we maybe give a Bootstrap class of form control. Here, I want to allow the user to enter the name of the server, which should get created. So here we could listen to the input event. This is a normal DOM event provided by the input element, which is fired whenever the user types. And here we could execute on update server name because it will be fired on every keystroke. So let's add this method to our component here. And now I somehow want to output what the user entered right now, what the value of this field is. Now we can do this by passing $event here. And $event, super important, is kind of a reserved variable name you can use in the template when using event binding. For this event, so only between these quotation marks here, $event will simply be the data emitted with that event. So input and click are default events provided by the DOM, you could say, and they ship us some data when they are fired. The click event gives us an object which, for example, holds the coordinates where we clicked. And the input event also gives us some data, some information about the event. Now we can capture this data with $event passed as an argument to the method we're calling, or used anywhere between these quotation marks in the code we're executing. $event, something to keep in mind. Reserved word which gives us access to the event data. So now we pass this to onUpdate server name. So here we know we will receive this event, and this will be of type any for now. So now let's simply log it to the console so that we can see it in this debug log. If we do this, and I now type something here, watch the console on the right. A couple of outputs were written there, 4 to be precise, because I typed 4 characters, did 4 keystrokes, so the input event was fired 4 times. And if we have a look at this event, we got a couple of information here, for example, the target. And the target simply is the HTML element on which this event occurred. So here on the target, since this is an input element, if we scroll down, we also got the value test, and this is what the user entered. So what we can do now in our TypeScript code is we can set a server name property, which is an empty string by default, and then here in onUpdate server name, instead of logging it, we could say this server name, and we just learned that on the event, which is of type event as we now also saw, here we have a target, and on the target we have a value. Now this is only available because the target is of type input element though. This is why my IDE doesn't like it. We can explicitly inform it about the type in TypeScript by adding HTML input element here in front of it like this. And again, this is just needed to inform TypeScript that we know that the type of the HTML element of this event will be an HTML input element. We do this explicit casting with this syntax, with the opening and closing tag, with the smaller and greater than sign and the type in between. So with that, we assign this value to our server name. What we can now do is, in the HTML file here, we can output this for now. So with string interpolation, we could output the server name below the input. If we save this and go back to this application, and I type test server here, you see this dynamically updates below the input. This is how you can use this $event object to fetch the event data. Now with that, let's move on to two-way data binding to kind of finish this little example app here for now.